everybody to PCC number 5. A lovely morning from North America. My name is R-Dog with the Triple G, and I'm very honored to be your host for today's event. PCC number 5. Oh my goodness. How's it going, chat? How is everybody? Shout out to Tedium. Thank you so much for that very lovely video, very highlight video of our previous event. We've had our group stages. Thank you so much. It's a fantastic, day where I'm from in Northwestern Canada. It's so great to be here. It's, surrounded by beautiful people. To my left, I've got Trix. Oh, this way, Trix. Hello there. And then to my right, I've got Mugi Wawa. So we have Smite Professional Game Designer, also one of our previous desk analysts, Mugi. How is it going?
It's going wonderful. I'm excited for today. A lot of great match, probably.
Yeah, and welcome back to Trix as well, one of our top desk analysts. If you guys remember him, he was in our group stages helping out with our desk to help kind of break down what we're about to see. How's it going, Trix?
It's going great. I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to see some good games. Hopefully talk about some good drafts. And yeah.
Yeah, today's a very, very special day in PCC history. We have so many teams that signed up for this event to try and take our crown, but it comes down to who is the best. We still have that very juicy, yummy prize pool of $3,500. And, who will take a piece of that pie and who will not? We've got a very long day ahead of us today in our semifinals. But our first game today, we have Rogue versus 4 Fun Gamers. Mugi, what can you tell us? Do you know anything about any of these two teams?
Well, of course, we know a little bit about them because they were in the group stage previously. Rogue is a returning team. There has been being a staple of all this tournament for many iteration. And 4 Fun Gamers is actually kind of a new team that I think they still want to prove themselves, because a lot of people were saying the group A is easy, but they swiped over the whole group A and they still ended up at the 5th seed and beating some staples like Pink Ravens in the past. And so and they also got some upgrades for that edition of the final, taking some of the top players of the team that dropped out. And so I'm pretty excited because they kind of come here with a big underdog story in a sense, but they probably gonna be a force to reckon with, especially since they do have Seismic stamp of approval against Rogue, and Seismic is just the mid laner of the number 1 seed. So when he says something, you should probably be watching about what is going to happen.
Yeah, I saw that from your stream yesterday. It's unfortunate I don't get to catch your streams when you do your actual analysis because it's literally at 2 a.m. So I'm sleeping. But wow, that was a really good stream from Mugi yesterday when he was, getting into the mind of a pro with Seismic. So he was talking about how FFG is, someone that or a team that Rogue has to be very careful of. But today there's something very new about, who we'll be seeing on Rogue. Trix, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so my normal partner in crime, Joe yours truly, he had to step in today for Rogue. Some of their players are having some problems with the network. So I'm super excited to see him. I'm a little disappointed that he's, abandoning me for his team, but who doesn't want a share of that, $3,000 prize pool?
3,500.
Oh my goodness.
But looking at the team stats for Rogue, this was based on the group stages and seeding round, which also Joey was a part of and also subbed for them as their ADC. You're looking at the average KDA. You know what, Mugi, take it away. You are the stats master here.
Yeah, so basically every stat that we're seeing here is the average kill death, assist, gold, and objective per 10 minutes of gameplay. So everything is comparable. And you can see in terms of kills and deaths, it's like pretty similar. We don't have a lot of differences. We're probably gonna see the stat of Forefront Gamers afterwards, and I feel like this is where like we can see that why Seismic was saying that, because like both stats are actually like pretty similar when it comes to the KDA of both team. Like we see like around 11 assists, 4 deaths, 6.5 kills. In terms of objective, we're around 1.5 per 10 minutes. So like both teams are very, very close. It's just like on average goal, it seems that Forefront Gamers is slightly like better at farming than Rogue. And also like in terms of win rate overall through the whole tournament, like we have like through the whole group stage, Forefront Gamers 86% win rate when Rogue was only 71%. So true, Rogue is supposed to be like the dominant force going into that match, but they have like a sub last minute. And if we just like analyze some core hard stats, they're very close to each other with maybe a slight edge for Forefront Gamers.
Yeah, and also for Forefront Gamers, they have a slightly different roster as well. So they made some changes. So Trix, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Forefront Gamers has made a lot of changes. They've kept the same jungler, Mad Corporeal. They moved their former mid laner, Zephyr, to the off lane and picked up Bry from Double Vision. They have Peak on support now, who was their former offlaner, and now they have Jay in the AD carry role. So practically a completely different team from what we saw in the group stages. It's kind of hard to maintain a good team consistency, a good like dynamic when you're making so many changes. It's kind of gone from Forefront Gamers to like Mad Corporeal and friends now kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
all incredibly skilled players individually, and they've been scrimming a lot, so it will be interesting to see if they've kind of made the best of their practice time and can push the boundaries, because I do think that per role a lot of them are as good, if not better, than the Rogue players. But Rogue has the advantage of having played together for a while. Even with their sub, Joe, yours truly, has been a sub for a long time. He's friends with all of the Rogue guys, so they kind of already have that chemistry there, so it won't be as much of a setback as a full roster swap.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see these matches. So today will be a best of 3. So we will have 3 matches that we'll be watching for Rogue and Forefront Gamers. But when you're looking at the bracket, we've got EWT versus Noko. So they've already started their match. We have R&R versus the Professors over in another bracket. And then also we've got D-Lab or Dirty Lake and the Boys versus Pink Ravens. Mugi, who are you like super excited to, or who is the contender, or who are the top teams for you, in your opinion?
Well, for me, of course, like even worse timing has to be there. Like they're the #1 seed. They haven't dropped a single game. They look super strong. There is like some former champion in the past. So like for me, it's definitely like even worse timing, like tournament to win. But to be fair, like the bottom bracket like feels super duper stacked. Resident Relaxation like came super strong in the seeding round, but they had a change of a mid laner, Narik stepping down from Brandonit, kind of changing a little bit the dynamic of the team. Professor putting in a lot of work, like with over 50 scrims since the seeding round. They really like also like revamped their team. And Dirty Lake and the Boys, they had like a very like bad showing in the previous seeding round, but they really put in the work as well with over 30 scrims during like the past 3 weeks and really like stepping up and starting to get back to their former glory. And Pink Ravens is always like the EU curveball that is like you never know how they're going to perform with the pink, but they have like some stellar player like Neft and MT in the team, so they can always like make something happen. So I would say like on the top bracket, I'm really like on the even worse timing bandwagon. On the bottom bracket, I have to admit, like I have no clue who is going to come out of top.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see those games later, and hopefully, I actually want to see MT play, because he's one of the best mid laners right now in Predecessor, and then being a mid main myself, like like, I want to see this guy play. They made that roster change and they switched Tang over to the offlane. So that'll be a very interesting series to watch. But what about you, Trix? In your opinion, like, who are you hoping to see for the top brackets, and who are you hoping to come out on top? And also maybe in the bottom brackets, who are you excited to watch?
Yeah, I agree with Mugi. I think even worse timing, being the number 1 seed, not dropping a game, they're very strong contenders to make it all the way. In terms of For Fun Gamers versus Rogue, I think it's pretty even. It's going to kind of come down to team dynamics, which, we'll see game 1. I think it's probably going to set the tempo. I don't think that, I'm not expecting like a huge back and forth spectacle. I'm kind of expecting one team to kind of run away with it in the first 10 to 15 minutes. The big game that I'm excited for is actually R&R versus Professors. I think Professors kind of, dropped the ball in the seeding round last time. 7th seed, I don't think is necessarily indicative of how good of a team they are. But R&R kind of came from behind, kind of out of nowhere, pulling out the number 2 seed slot. And it will be interesting to me to see if, they can kind of live up to that. Obviously, we're expecting even worse timing to push all the way to the end. It's interesting that, the number 2 spot, we're kind of like, well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. D-Lab, incredible team. Professors, typically, a really good team. So the bottom bracket is definitely where I'm expecting to see some shakeups, some really good games, some really close games. I think the top side of the bracket is a little more clear cut with even worse timing, just pushing straight to the finals.
Yeah, I'm hoping we don't just see like those clean sweeps, because I like to see the spice. I want to see the other team giving the other team the team having some hope that because they won against that team. But I'm super excited to see a lot of these matches. For me personally, I'm really excited to see the R&R come out on top. They are these group of gamers that we didn't expect to see, but they're a very strong contender. So I'm really excited to see what they have in store for us. But this is also the first event where we will have Xeris, actually. So now that it's been a little bit over 2 weeks since he first came out, Mugi, what are the takes? Is he OP? Is he not?
Well, in my opinion, it's definitely not OP because he has some strengths, but it's also very easy to shut down. And as any bruiser, it's kind of similar to Regrux. If you start to fall behind, you start to not be able to impact the map as much. But especially in offline, he has some matchup that can be very, very strong. And it's kind of make it very interesting because team started to really lean toward the Shinbi pick to counter those Severog, those picks that are hard to interact with. But suddenly, if the Xeris is here, then you can suddenly flex the Severog into your jungle, put the Xeris into the offlane, destroy that Shinbi. And so the whole dynamic of the draft is kind of opened up by Xeris. And also you can find a little bit of Xeris into the jungle. And I feel like here is really reliant on his cage and his Coliseum ultimate to be able to really make something happen. But again, certain comp, sometimes you get the Dagger plus the Xeris, you have double cage, and suddenly that open up some good team fight composition.
Yeah, let's see. We want to see this series, For Fun Gamers versus Rogue. Let's go ahead and see the draft. All right, Rogue versus For Fun Gamers. I'm actually really curious where they'll put Joey because he's going to be subbing for Wangle, who is the mid laner. Any thoughts where you think they'll put him, Trix?
Yeah, I mean, Joe is, truly one of the god gamers of this game. He can play all 5 roles. If you can make a team of 5 Joes, that's just clear number 1 seed. So I know typically, he likes to play a lot of the offlane from what I've seen, but I think that he's comfortable enough to pick mid. I don't think that they, want to do too much of shaking up the roster in terms of, moving Joe to somewhere to move someone else to mid, especially with some of their players having small hero pools, Penzo specifically, and we see that coming out of For Fun Gamers' first ban, banning the steal. That's a target ban against Penzo. He's very comfortable on the champion. He's played it a ton in the offlane. It's just a generally safe pick that brings a lot of utility to the team, and he can flex into that support role, although we don't see it too often.
What about you, Mugi? What do you think about what you're seeing right now?
So we answer with the Decker ban. So overall, the two target bans so far have been Decker and Bellica. Here it's interesting because it leaves the Bellica open. So let's see if Forefront Gamers decide to go for that and if they want something else. I kind of like the Steel ban on the side of Forefront Gamers because Rogue is a team that loves to team fight, and having this very, very strong initiator that also creates this front to back potential with wombo combo Steel really fits into what Rogue is doing. And also it can open up probably here also question about Twin Blast because we still removed, but they decide to go for the Bellica. Very safe pick, 81% win rate in the group phase. So it's no surprise, and let's see how Rogue are going to answer that Bellica first pick.
Yeah, honestly, I'm probably expecting Rogue to, okay, there you go, picking up the support and the mid laner. That Gideon, especially into the Bellica, is, in my opinion, pretty strong because you kind of want to push the Bellica towards mid lane, which means that you don't have a strong pick, especially with Decker and Steelband, to answer the Gideon ult. Phase, just overall super strong support, especially for Rogue's duo lane. The lifesteal or the healing that she gives your carry in laning phase is incredible, especially if they decide to run that Bellica support. Bellica support brings a lot of utility with that seismic assault, and Phase can just kind of play in the back, poke down with energy lance, and then pull the carry back out of danger if they ever get CC'd. Richter coming out for Forefront Gamers and Sevrog, so two real big beefy boys coming out.
And I kind of like those two pick together because here I feel like Richter is already kind of good because if you have the Bellica, you have already set up in lane. If you decide to go for a Richter jungle, the setup can either be mid lane or support. But here with the Sevrog, you also offer yourself the possibility of having a lot of switch. And maybe you can go Sevrog jungle, Sevrog off lane, or Richter jungle, Richter off lane. We know also that pick is not the support for Forefront Gamers, and in the group stage he only played Richter. That was the only pick he played during the whole group stage. So maybe it's also a Richter support. And so with this 3-pick, you have a very, very strong front lines with already pretty good scaling from the Sevrog and the Bellica. Good setup for your Richter, and you still have plenty of space to just flex everything around to adapt to what Rogue is going to do.
Yeah, I'm thinking, knowing Matt Corporeal's, kind of champion pool and play style, I'm expecting that this is probably Sevrog off, Richter support, Bellica mid, and they're leaving that Kalari Fang Mao pick up to Matt Corporeal for the jungle. And he likes to run those, kind of high mobility, high damage jungle characters. But Twin Blast coming out from Rogue, kind of keeping it pretty safe, playing it close to the chest by picking up the duo lane in the first half of the draft. I think it's fine. It lets them kind of pick winning matchups in the off lane and the jungle, which I think is probably one of their avenues to victory. But the gadget ban is interesting to me, since looking at these three characters, I think that it's more than likely a Bellica mid. So I'm not sure why you would ban another mid laner unless you're worried about gadget mid Bellica. I just don't see how these three characters can really go anywhere else.
I would say if they do their homework against Forefront Gamers, probably the possibility I was talking about are kind of limited. But at the same time, if you want to force the Gideon into Bellica, and you don't really want to deny anything else, because to be fair, with Phase Twin Blast, you're not really scared of any ADC that the enemy team can really throw at you. And so here, by removing this gadget, because if they got a gadget with a Richter or a Sevrog, they still have the Bellica support, then suddenly it becomes very, very complicated. But we go for the camera ban, and so I would assume that you're trying to deny the jungle pick, and either here they're going to reveal that they go for a specific outer jungler for Matt Corporeal, and they will pick it here, so they deny already Richter, Sevrog, camera, and then one more pick, or they just decide to secure here. I would say they carry to just get that matchup locked up and still keep the flex for the last pick and adapt to what Rogue is going to do as a comp.
Yeah, and taking the Chimera off the table kind of opens up that Rampage jungle that we used to see a lot before Chimera kind of came into the meta. Chimera really shuts down Rampage, clears better, ganks better, does more damage. You can just kind of invade. But having taken Chimera off the table, it opens up that Rampage for that big, huge front line that Rogue might be looking for. So it's interesting that Forefront Gamers bans it, because I know that Mad Corporeal plays it. But Rogue picking up the Crunch, likely going into the off lane, that is, one of the winning matchups against Sevrog, especially early game. So I think Forefront Gamers, with the last two picks, probably going to prioritize something that can impact the map early and tilt the lane into the Sevrog's favor, because you absolutely don't want to let that Crunch get rolling.
Yeah, you don't want to let that crunch get rolling, but he probably they're picking that either to put it in the jungle or offlane since it's the two role that miss, so it's like a flex pick. But at the same time, when it will come to the late game, having a crunch that have to go through a Bellica, a Rictor, and a Sevrog, I don't expect that crunch having like a lot of impact in the later stage of the game. And now we have a Drongo on top of that, and so like this crunch needs to get rolling into the early mid game, or in the late game it will be completely like no impactful. And that's something I'm a bit scared with the draft on the side of Rogue, is like so far, like besides the Twin Blast, they don't have any late game. Like Gideon is super strong, but in the late game it starts to like kind of fall off. Crunch can be super strong in late game against certain comp, but that's not the comp where Crunch is strong. So like Rogue really need to make something happen early and mid game, otherwise the scaling of the Sevrog, the Muriel, and the Bellica will be a big issue for them.
Yeah, and then Rogue picking up the Feng Mao, rounding out the drafts. These almost seem reversed from what I would kind of expect. Like you mentioned, picking up the Drongo into the crunch, especially when there's already Bellica, Richter, Sevrog, just so much CC. That crunch is definitely like, when you pick crunch like this, you're committing to, hey, we're gonna win the game early, because you can't let it go late into a team comp like this. The crunch is just going to get eaten alive. He's going to dash in, he's going to get knocked up, he's going to get silenced, he's going to get killed instantly. But like you said, the Twin Blast is kind of the only late game. Feng Mao can scale up, but he has to really get ahead of that power curve to kind of be a threat. And then picking him into two big tanks like Richter and Sevrog, sure, he can dive on, but Drongo with Shrapnel Cannon, Drongo with Gag Grenade, and the Muriel kind of pocketing him, it's going to be hard for him to get a lot done. And I don't think that the front to back kind of fighting potential of Rogue is there to break through the Richter Sevrog.
So Mugi, you kind of mentioned that Rampage, or sorry, I can't remember if it was you, Trix, or Mugi, but because they had that gadget ban, the Chimera ban from FFG. Do you think that a Rampage would have worked better again instead of the Crunch or the Feng Mao as the next fourth pick for Rogue?
Well, I think, once again, I don't know if the Crunch is going offlane or jungle, but yeah, Rampage maybe can like offer a little bit more. Still, you will have the same issue about the late game scaling, because Rampage doesn't scale that well anymore. It's really like mainly about this early and mid game pressure, but maybe I would have preferred through the Rampage when it comes to actually applying pressure with the Gideon, the Phase, Twin Blast lane, and start to snowball the game out of that pressure. That could have been an option. I knew that Rampage had really fallen out of flavor from teams, but I still think he has a place somewhere. We still need to figure out which place it is.
All right, Trix, this is the question. Who wins the draft for you? So
I think looking at it, kind of from the perspective that I said, where I think Wednesday was going to run away with the game in 10 minutes. I think, Rogue's draft with the Feng Mao and the Crunch definitely has the higher potential to run away with it. And I think that if they manage to get ahead of that power curve, kind of give the Crunch a couple kills, give the Feng Mao a couple kills, to where they can kind of run around the map with their high mobility and just knock one character up, blow them up, take them off the map, I think that they definitely have it. I think if they fail in that objective and they let the game kind of go a little too long, 20-25 minutes, where that Sevrog starts to become unkillable and do so much damage, the Richter starts to become unkillable, Bellica starts to come online because she's a little slow to that scaling. When she hits that level 11 with the rank 2 Neural Disruptor, she starts to do a lot more damage. I think then the game definitely swings towards For Fun Gamers.
It's going to be very annoying for Rogue to go against this high CC, team for FFG. But Mugi, who do you think wins the draft for you?
Like, for me, the draft has been won by FFG here. I don't even feel like it's like Rogue needs to win early, like Trix was saying, because otherwise the late game is going to be very, very rough. But I don't even feel like you go for a Phase Twin Blast lane that is strong, but against a Muriel Drongo, you don't even have the early game against that lane. You're just poking and waiting to scale when the rest of your team needs to finish the game. And so I feel like there's like some disconnect on the side of the draft of Rogue, and I feel like the better draft has been on the side of FFG, and so for me it's definitely like a FFG draft diff on that first game.
And then Trix, you kind of mentioned that Rogue has to kind of end the game early. So does that mean that FFG needs to kind of go into the late game in order for them to really come online?
Yeah, I think once we get into like that mid game phase, the draft definitely swings towards their draft. And like I was mentioning earlier, in terms of individual player skill, how I think FFG is a little bit better than Rogue across the board, but synergistically, Rogue has the advantage. It's interesting that you would pick lanes that kind of have to win early rather than scale up, because historically it's easier for teams that have better communication, better synergy, to kind of stall off that onslaught. It's conversely, you can, with some synergy between your mid and your jungler, get those early kills, get the ball rolling, and maybe they're relying on that, but highly skilled individual players aren't necessarily going to let you outplay them 1v1 or even 2v1. They're going to see it coming. They're going to feel, you can kind of feel that lane state difference when your opposing laner gets aggressive for seemingly no reason. You kind of had that sixth sense, oh, I'm getting ganked, like I just need to back up. So it's interesting to me that they would choose a draft that to me doesn't necessarily fit towards their playstyle or like their paths to winning. But I think, going back to your original question, once it hits mid game, probably around 15-20 minutes, if Rogue doesn't have a decisive lead, then I think it's definitely in favor of FFG.
All right. So predictions wise, who do you think will win game one? I'll start with you, Mookie.
Well, I'm a big advocate about like getting ahead through the draft, and I feel like draft is like almost 50% of the game, and even more when it comes that you have the late game draft when it's not that hard to resist the early game onslaught. So I would say FFG for the game one, definitely.
All right, Trix. Game number one, FFG versus Rogue. Who do you think will win?
I agree with Moogie 100%. It's definitely FFG for me.
You think it's gonna be FFG, you guys? You don't have any faith in Joe yours truly? He's supposed to be your fellow desk analyst, Trix.
He is my fellow desk analyst. Maybe he's got a secret build he hasn't made a YouTube video about that just instantly wins the game. But I'm looking at the drafts. I think FFG just has this one in the bag.
You know what? I have to support Joey, unlike you guys. So I'm gonna go with Rogue. I think they're gonna do really well. Joey, you just put this guy anywhere and he's going to excel. He played ADC for them in the seeding group. He played, I'm curious to see where he's going to be. He's one of the best offlaners in the game currently. So I think, wherever you put him, he's going to do super well. I'm curious to see if they will, make some changes, like maybe move Pinzo to mid, perhaps, and then put Joey in offlane because he is like such a strong offlaner as well. But I don't know. I think Joey will be their tech, I guess, or their way to victory. Not to, say that Wangle doesn't make a difference. He's also one of the best mid laners in the game, but it's going to be Rogue for me. But anyways, when we were just talking about the draft though, like what kind of like synergies are you seeing when it came to the team, let's say? So Rogue had FaZe, Gideon, Twin Blast, the Crunch, and the Fangmouth. Moogie.
Well, it's kind of hard because that's exactly what I kind of feel like is lacking on the side of Rogue. They're a team that usually play around their synergy, and I feel like here the synergy kind of falls flat a little bit. They have very strong dive with the Crunch and Fang Mao, but the enemy team is not really vulnerable to dive because they have the Bellica, they have the Muriel to defend themselves. You have to go through a Rictor that can play like peeling in the backline, so like the dive is not really working that well. And the only thing that you kind of have to engage is mainly your Gideon. You also have the Energy Lens, but the Energy Lens is like by itself. You have not a Rictor to follow up on that. You don't have a Decker to, like some teams that started to play like FaZe on the support, Decker in the mid lane to have like some follow up, and here we don't have anything. So I feel like they kind of try to go for individual plays from the Crunch, the Fang Mao, the Twin Blast to kind of win the game, but in terms of synergy, I feel like it's kind of falling flat on the side of Rogue, and that's a shame because that's their main strength in my opinion.
I mean, they say FaZe and TB is one of the most annoying, duos that you don't want to go up against. What do you think about that, Trix?
Yeah, they just apply a lot of pressure. I mean, early game Twin Blast damage, in my opinion, is severely lacking. But with the Energy Lance from far away, it lets the TB kind of engage, pick his battles. He gets to kind of spam those grenades, which have incredibly good scaling. So after first couple items, he starts to put a lot of pressure. He's got good pushing potential, especially if he goes Stormbreaker first. His wave clear is just incredible, which allows them to kind of like rotate around the map as a group, really put pressure on mid lane, fight around those objectives. But I mean, I think just against a Drongo Muriel, you can never actually like step up. You can never fight. FaZe wants to do the energy lance. TB wants to walk up and poke and then pull them out before anything, you can get any damage back. But with the energy lance, Muriel can just shield it. She can alacrity you forward. She can use her Q to slow you down. And then Drongo and Muriel want to take those kind of extended trades because they just do more damage early on. So I think that, it's kind of shut down in the duo lane side, in my opinion.
All right, so then I guess Crunch maybe, or the Fang Mao, whoever the jungle is, they would need to kind of apply some pressure on that duo lane so the Drongo and Muriel doesn't, get ahead. Anything else that you'd like to add when it comes to the draft, Mugi?
Well, I'm very curious about how FFG are going to place people. Obviously, we have the Muriel and the Drongo in the duo lane. We have the Bellica in the mid lane. But is the Severa going to be in the jungle or in the off lane, and the Rictor vice versa? I feel like both of those pick is fantastic to be able to either catch this duo lane, because we have a phase Twin Blast, and if you get any CC on. I think Severog is slightly better because we don't have any secure from the Muriel and the Drongo. So that's one of the questions I'm curious to see in the game. And also to see Matt Corporeal on more of those tanky pick, because he's more known for his Fang Mao prowess.
Yes,
and so what he's going to do with this more tanky, ganky type of pick.
And
how about you, Trix? Any last remarks?
Yeah, I wish that instead of the Gideon, it had been a gadget, because that's kind of what their team fight. That's what their team comp wants to do. You don't want to, self CC CC yourself in terms of, if you have two dive characters. It's a little interesting because you can't with a gadget. You could dive, drop down the Tesla Dome, and then fight through the Tesla Dome or behind the Tesla Dome, kind of split your front line and your back line, so you can keep yourself safe. With the Gideon, you dive in, and then. Well, now your backline also has to dive in. You don't like those full committing team fight kind of things. To me, I don't like them because it's pretty coin flippy. Maybe you get the assassination, maybe you don't. But against the Drongo Muriel, I just don't think that it works out like that. But we'll see how it plays.
Have you heard of Time Flux Gideon tricks?
No,
no?
That's the one it marks you in time, right? And then you jump up the ult, you teleport back.
Yes, and then you teleport back. So maybe they'll pull out the Time Flux Gideon. It's something that has been, correct me if I'm wrong, but that a lot of these players are also trying out in pubs, and then also, well, pubs are something else, but in scrims as well. What do you think, Mugi?
Well, I think Time Flux Gideon is I feel like there's opportunity for early mid game team comp to be aggressive and snowball out of control. And when you go for the Gideon mid and you want to go for that strategy, I think Time Flux Gideon is actually very, very strong at that. I still feel like the champion pool is slightly lacking to fully go for this type of strategy. But there is one guy that is starting to doing that very well in scrims, and it's Brandonite, the mid laner for rest and relaxation. And he actually deleted some carries in the late game by just going deep and just TP back, and then he carries at 1 HP, receive 1 damage, and you win the team fight just from the Time Flux Gideon in late game. So it can even be good, but it's very, very high skill ceiling, and you need to be a very know how to use that ability. But here against a Muriel and the Drongo, I don't even see that potential in that game.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult, but I still have hope for Joey. But I know we're kind of still waiting on the game here. So we're just going to take a short break while we kind of get this game one started for you. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody. We have Rogue versus 4Fun Gamers. This will be a very fun series to watch. So let's give it up for our top-notch casters, Man of Class and Lance Cecil.
Oh boy, does it feel good to be back on camera for all of you guys. My name, as always, is Lance Cecil, and I am joined here with Man of Class. How you doing today, Mano? Oh, man, you're going to have to repeat that, sir. You are on the mute button.
I keep forgetting to unmute myself, but now that I'm unmuted, I'm ready to go. I mean, I got my purple shirt ready. It's PCC time. It's great. And we were watching that draft, Lance, and I think we're agreed with the desk. That was a masterful draft from FFG. That's how you do that.
It is exactly how you do that. And we do have a little bit of an update to provide for this as well. We do know what roles the subs and stuff are going to be playing on Rogue. It is going to be OJ, YT, Omeda, Joe, yours truly on the phase support. We got Pinzo, Midzo on the Gideon, and then it's going to be Tekken over in the offlane on the Feng Mao. So Tekken goes back to the role where I've been singing from the top of the mountains that he's the best offlaner in the game. Great to see Tekken back over there. The adaptability of Rogue is really interesting to see. It's going to be nice to see Pinzo on the Gideon. What are you expecting to see out of this mana class?
I mean, kind of everything we did in sort of preparation for this game, talking about what they're gonna draft or they're gonna play, is kind of all out the window, especially for the Rogue side of things because of that Joey substitute. Like Des did a great job breaking it down. We'll definitely say that. Of course, there's a little bit of an unknown where Joey was gonna start. But yeah, kind of, like all the results that Rogue's recently done, like a lot of scrims they've recently done, like all of that's gonna be different from the way they're gonna be playing in game today. Because of all those role swaps. And like you said, I think we're both very happy to see Tekken in the off lane, but there is the caveat of how worried are we for that mid lane matchup.
So, I mean, everybody sees Pinzo every day on Twitch over there at 1 Eastern time. He doesn't just run off lane. He started on this team as their support. He put in a lot of time, learned that support role when it was unnatural to him, moved himself over to the off lane as well, picked that one up too when it wasn't necessarily, I think it's the role that he liked, but not necessarily the one that he felt the strongest on. I know he plays a lot of mid lane just like on a daily basis in his solo queue, but it's not the same as playing it when it matters. This matchup determines who has the opportunity to play for money. If you lose this series, you're out. The last 3 weeks, 5 weeks that you've spent competing in this, going through the group stage, going through the seeding stage, making it all of this way will be for nothing. So this is important. And they got early pressure on Pinzo actually, as he looks like he's trying to look up and maybe find Matt Caporal, but he's pretty low. So the inexperience might be showing early. Is Brian going to get him? Oh my God, put him on the board. What a way to start the tournament. Is Brian's going to pick up the solo kill on Pinzo?
EZW. I mean, this is exactly what you do not want to see when you're a Rogue. You want to start off strong early. You're the ones that are supposed to get the early game pickoffs. And that pressure is instantly put on you. FFG starting not just strong with the draft, but starting strong in the game. And the pressure is insane. Zephyr also just pushing to the tower. If you look at like the overall map positions, everyone is just either frozen their lane or just pushing forward on the side of FFG and Rogue. I'm not saying they're in shambles just yet, but this is gonna start heating up a little bit more on their side.
Oh, and we saw this in the 1v2 matchup to determine seeding in the seeding round. Seismic was on Bellica and he got ahead early and he stayed ahead. And as we blink, Tekken Kid's gonna get, you say, I want a piece of this prize as well. And he's gonna get a solo kill over onto Zephyr as well. And that's another rotation we saw as well. Zephyr is typically their mid laner. He moved over here to add some strength to the roster, bring a couple of players in. So maybe we're seeing some uncomfortability on both players in a new role, both Pinzo and mid and Zephyr over in that off lane. It might just be a Tekken diff though as well. But the action is flying in this game already, 1-1 in kills. We're only 3 minutes and 17 seconds into the game.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting to look at that offlane matchup in general. It's like the Sevarog versus the Feng Mao, and then you see the Sevarog pushing up. Sevarogs aren't usually used to pushing up that far. They're usually like happy to sit back, grab their CS, grab their stacks, and they're gonna kind of deal with it that way. And then Zephyr just being so far up, that is a little bit of a shift in tempo than you're maybe usually used to if you're on that Sevarog. We're going to have a little bit of pressure on the duo lane working in the favor of FFG. They're going to pick up that gold buff, so Peek and Jay get that slight gold advantage, be able to push up further forward and get their items aligned a little bit sooner. But Haru and Joey, I mean, they're going to be sitting here not too phased by anything throughout the energy lance, and there's going to be a lot of support coming in as Blue Jay tacks on, tries to go for the gank, but pressure's all they're going to get for now.
Yeah, and that's a good job. At least they get the flash out of Jay there. That is really good. Not a lot of mobility in this duo lane, especially when considering they're playing into a phase. Not a lot of ways for Muriel or Drongo to really get out of that before they hit level 6, before, you know, the Uno reverse card comes into it. Drongo's got the shrapnel cannon to be able to knock himself away as well. So for the next 5 minutes, expect Blue Jay to be able to come back around here, especially as we're approaching this 5-minute mark where the first Fangtooth is going to be spawning. We're pretty close in gold right now. Pressure amongst the lanes kind of even as well. So it's going to be really contested over here on the Fangtooth side of the map.
It really should be, but let's see if it's actually going to work out that way. Bri and Pinzo just chilling in the mid lane, throwing up their waves. They're picking up their buffs consistently, so they're going to be happy for a little bit until those rotations start coming in. Close to level 6, so we are going to start working with a situation where Bri and Pinzo are going to be much more effective in team fights, and it does feel like both these teams do want to wait until those 6 before they even think about Fangtooth. Posture is there. The wards are being placed though.
That movement speed buff was really nice for Bri, as well as it allowed him to kind of get through that sandwich they were creating on the left side river buff. But the subject is going to land, and Tekken Kid's in a bit of trouble here. Does have the Reaping Dash and the blink combo. Gonna push the key to move over to his left and dodge the hook as well. So great job surviving by Tekken Kid there, as he was in a little bit of an extended position. Jay's gonna fall down as well, so we talked about that. You know, we blew his flash just a couple of minutes ago. He doesn't have that for 5 minutes. Less than 1 minute later, they're going to rotate, take that over, and now they've got priority over this side of the map where they can potentially work towards this first Fangtooth.
Yeah, it was a little bit unfortunate for Mine Corporal as well. Like, they tried to help out with that gank on the side, Tekken Kid with the double blink. Matt Corporal maybe was a little bit too close. Like, he could sort of expect that blink to come out, maybe the double. So you want to have a little bit more distance if you are the Richter, so you can potentially throw the hook out. Zephyr now on low mana, fighting up against Tekken Kid, who's got level 6 and's got the health and mana advantage. We'll try and look for that threshold for the execute to come through. Not quite able to find it just yet, as Zephyr is obviously aware of that dynamic, does not want to challenge a level 6 Feng Mao this early on.
Let's dial this back and talk about this really quick. Do you think it is wise for them to camp this Tekken Kid lane? With having a character like Sevrog, you can sit back as long as you're not feeding and dying constantly. We know that he died like level 2. That's going to happen sometimes when you're against a player like Tekken Kid. But do you think it's worth the time Matt Caporal is putting in to camping this lane? I kind of feel like he should be focusing his winning lanes and doing things like this to try to get onto Pinzo, although he's also hard to gank.
I think they tried it early, and I think they thought maybe we can get Tekken Kid. They at least got the flash out, which is obviously a good thing to do. And it also did look like, especially on the duo lane, they were pushing up in such a fashion that you're never really going to be able to do a proper gank on Haru and Joey. So you're kind of sitting there waiting until there's an opening. It's not really coming. You have to hit that hook, and that Whiplash is just tricky to do, especially if the phase can just pull you back.
Yeah.
So and then mid lane, yeah. I mean, it's Gideon. They aren't pushing up far. They have the flash and the teleport away. There's not that much that Matt Corporal can actually effectively help gank, and it does feel like the Feng Mao would be the best option, especially because that is where it does seem like their matchup are the weakest. That is where that early game pressure can come in the most, and it has so far also been the case.
Yeah, I do agree. And, you know, looking back at this retrospectively, you are correct. It's pretty hard to gank all 3 of these lanes. You got the phase pull to pull her out. You got the torn space from the Gideon. You got the Reaping Dash from the Feng Mao. Not a whole lot of places where you're going to be able to get a close range hook. You're going to be hitting those all of the way at the end of the Whiplash if you're going to be able to get them. So I think right now it's about power farm and becoming a really big tanky boy, being able to walk up to the spot where you can hopefully get a good multi-man ult off into and then into the Whiplash and the change CC. We got another fight coming out here though, but I don't think this is one that Zephyr wants to take now. They're just going to take a little bit of a trade back and forth and walk away from each other.
Got your wave pushed in. You're just waiting for some more stacks to come through. Zephyr is building them up slowly, not as fast as they might have wanted to, and they've had a little bit too much pressure on their lane to really farm optimally. You know, you get what you get. Now a little bit of posturing around that Fangtooth. The dual lane is completely rotating over, as well as jungle mid lane. They're all in there. They want to go for this pit, and it doesn't seem like FFG has the members around to really challenge this. The Richter is far away. Dual lane isn't really rotating over just yet, so this might just go to Rogue without a lot of contest.
Yeah, they're gonna blow it down pretty quick. Jay's gonna try to take a couple auto shots over the wall, but it's not gonna do too much. Joe's a little isolated, but he's got Haru on the leash, should be able to come back, and that's not where you want to be if you're a Drongo. The Uno reversal card is gonna come in, and they're actually gonna be able to pop one member down, as it looks like Pinzo is going to fall. Another flash is gonna come out from Haru here, so they're actually gonna be able to keep them off of that Fangtooth, which is very important for them, as it's going to keep. Oh, actually, no, it does look like Rogue was able to secure that beforehand.
Yeah, they got
just got updated a tiny bit delayed on my screen. I apologize to all the viewers, but they do get that. They lose one member for it, but that's hashtag worth in all chat. If you're a Rogue fan, that's going to get them extensions on their buffs. That's exactly what they're looking for. Tekken Kid with a little bit wide on the ult there. Not necessarily sure what he was aiming at, but Zephyr is going to have to hit a reset. Looks like Tekken Kid's going to do it as well.
It's a shame that
here comes Bry. They're going to run into each other, but he's still got a decent amount of mana. The drone's going to come down, and yeah, Reaping Dash is going to get him out.
Yeah, it's a shame that FFG didn't get much more out of Fangtooth fight. Like, they got that one kill in the mid lane, which does help them, of course, pressure the mid lane a little bit more. But they were definitely setting up for, okay, they might get the Fangtooth, because the Fangtooth is not the thing you really care about that early game. You care about the fight around the Fangtooth, whether you get it or not. And they were definitely in a position to get maybe a little bit more, but the escape was really good from Rogue. The rotation was a little late from FFG. And for fun gamers, they're now going to have to find their value somewhere else on the map. For instance, in this duo lane, where they just keep on poking back and forth, but they're not really clearing waves. And Haru does seem to have a little bit more of that power level on their pick at the moment. So that Swim Blast is just blasting away.
Ooh, Mad Corporal's gonna find Blue Jay over here on his 3 camp, but the health bars for the duo lane are already pretty low. The hook is gonna land. The silence is really nice into the crunch as well, but Joe is gonna be able to just yank Blue Jay right out of it. Energy Lance is gonna come down onto Jay, but stopped by the gag grenade. Pinzo's roaming over as well, drops a big rock, but it's not quite enough damage. Bry's around the corner as well, but it looks like this is gonna be a disengage.
Yeah, the sustain from that duo in particular is not too great at the moment. They are just taking a lot of poke damage, and they're taking a lot of ability usage early on, which means they don't really have it for when the fight actually starts. That pool is really good from FaZe. Joey, obviously, we know what Joey can do, and it's showing it up here again. But there is just a slight timing issue here and there for FFG and like a resource commitment. Zephyr still chilling on the lane, has not really been picked off anymore, so that's a good thing. Like, that early level 2 really was a wake-up call, it seems. But Tekken Kid, even when they're not actually doing damage, they're putting so much pressure just by this posturing. Like, look at that. Tekken Kid's just standing there. Zephyr knows that as soon as he steps out a little bit too far, it's going to be a big burst combo, then an ultimate, and you're just done. Even when you're Sevarog, because it's too early. You're not stacked enough yet.
It definitely is. They're also privy to the fact that Mad Caporal is over on the other side of the map, as well as they have a couple of deep wards in there that have spotted them out. Bry's going to take a peek, realize that that river buff is down, actually. And, you know, it's 12 minutes, so that does make sense. Usually at this level of play, people are taking them at every odd minute mark like that. But it looks like we've got a second where the action is kind of stopped. We can take a second to breathe. Let's get an update on this kill score. As we see, it is knotted up. There is an 8 CS difference between the two of them. It's 2 kills, 2 deaths, 2 assists for every single thing. Bry's got the 2 kills for the side of 4 Fun Gamers. Tekken Kid's got one. I believe I saw that it was Blue Jay that has the other kill for Rogue, but I didn't quite catch it, but that is okay. So pretty even at this spot. And we heard people talking about, as we were coming into this, our analysts were saying, if this goes late, 4 Fun Gamers has got the composition that's gonna win the late game here. I don't know that I 100% agree with that, but on like an individual champion level, they do scale better.
That's fascinating. They were committed to that mini prime, didn't actually get it. Zephyr just shows their face, and Rogue just runs away. They didn't actually finish off the elimination on the objective. And I was really thinking, why is it taking so long for this mini prime to be contested by anybody? And it still really hasn't. So yeah, I mean, eventually it'll come through, of course, but Rogue is definitely starting to get a little bit more scared of this team fight potential that FFG is bringing to the table when these levels are getting up. The ultimates are now online for everybody, and it is starting to stack up on items and just sustainability as well. A lot of damage coming out from Zephyr. Yeah, no, he's
that
ready.
siphon chunks.
And it's gonna only chunk a chunk more as time goes on. Brian now 3 characters on the lane, has to flash away, but I think he's happy to give up that flash when there's 3 characters in your lane and you're in a little bit of trouble. Brian now just gonna keep on farming, but they're posturing for this next Fangtooth, it looks like. It doesn't feel like Rogue is ready to go for the next objective. Fangtooth really close, of course, like a minute away, probably less. And yeah, FFG, they got to figure out what they're going to do, because they're just kind of happy to sit back. They didn't really have to do anything.
Yeah, and going back to what you're saying about them taking jumping off of the mini prime there, a lot of the game is mental and like knowing where you're at and confidence in yourself to be able to take fights and commit to doing things. And it may show a small chink in the armor here that Rogue sees Zephyr and just immediately turns tail and runs away from that mini prime. But it looks like they got the coconuts to be able to start up this Fangtooth right now, as Blue Jay's going in there using those ones and the twos on his big robot hands and starting to knock it down. Matt Caporal's over it, but for some reason he's on the 3 camp. While they know that these guys are on the Fangtooth, they're just going to give it up like that, even with them standing in the same neighborhood.
Not another fight afterwards as well. They're not even going for that pickoff. Zephyr, in the meantime, is split pushing, so they did consciously make the choice of not rotating their offlane over. And Zephyr is 100% communicated to their team. Like, well, Feng Mao isn't here. If they're on Fangtooth, he's going to be 100% there or near, because there's no way he's going to give up the mid lane for any other reason. And that's a big chunk out of that tower health.
That's a great catch from you there, Man of Class. However, that's huge for Rogue. They did decide to just give that up. It was probably wise, as they were most likely going to lose that team fight with the numbers advantage that you're talking about. But the team for Rogue rotates exponentially faster than the team for Fun Gamers does. Getting to that second prime or Fangtooth, I apologize. Getting to that second Fangtooth is going to give them that 8% out of combat movement speed, and they're going to zoom around the map. It's already so hard to catch Feng Mao, and now they're going to commit 4 members onto the mini prime.
But there's the fight. The fight's going to happen here, because now they're all here. They're just missing their ADC. The Gideon's missing on the other side, so they know there's no black hole danger, and this could have been a fight. But again, like, the rotation speed is so fast. What you're talking about, right? So Blue Jay has already picked up the mini prime while they're still posturing to maybe take a fight on in the pit, and FFG just walks away again. Objective gone, objective taken, 2 for free, and now we're gonna get fire on the offlane when Blue Jay is running into the Richter over here, and Matt Corporeal. That's the wait, as to not fight that amped up Crunch.
Yeah, and that's a fight you normally do want to take if you're a Richter. Crunch really struggles once he gets silenced in that 1v1 between the two of them. But that mini prime buff is going to enhance that Crunch so much that Matt Corporeal is smart enough to know, I got to back away from this. Zephyr's going to be able to clear these waves, hopefully keep my turret up, as it does look like Blue Jay had gone back to farming as well. So, you know, he's gone away. The pressure is off for right now, and Matt Corporal's very smart for not engaging on that.
And as we're in this mid game, like, we're getting closer and closer to the proper orb prime spawning, the big boy. Everyone's starting to pick up at least a couple of items, so we're getting closer and closer to these mid power builds, and some spikes are going to start happening, especially on the side of Rogue. And FFG has to be careful. Like, they just cannot be picked off. And so far, they have been playing pretty careful. Like, other than those 2 pickoffs that happened on the Drongo and the one on the Zephyr early game. Both teams have honestly just been playing really patient, and fights have just been eluded a lot, which again is what FFG kind of wants. They just want to, like, quietly farm, not get too far behind, and then just turn it on them in the late game. But this is really the time where Rogue has to start using that advantage of the earlier power spikes to get some pickoffs, to get some objectives. The objectives are going well, but now we're waiting for that gap to start growing for them, for them to snowball into a fairly early victory.
It does look like only 1 tower, from what I can see on my pixelated minimap over here, has fallen, as it is the tier 1 tower for Fun Gamers that was knocked down a little bit ago. They have Pinzo over here deflecting some of this push that Bry is putting on. Bry does need to be a little bit careful. His jungler is on his side, but he doesn't have anything to fall back to. The only person who doesn't have a tower behind him in the game right now, as we were just referencing, and Jay needs to be a little bit careful. He's going to face check into the mid lane, gonna have to shrapnel cannon and blink to get away from the energy lance that comes out of Joe Yours Truly there. So once again, look at Jay for the next 5-ish minutes or so. They've been capitalizing on him every single time that he has blown his blink this game, and I expect that to continue.
There is the buffed up wave that's going to try and take this mid tower here. It is very low. They're very likely to get that elimination unless there's a lot of pushback. Great skewer from Macroporio over there, but does get instantly bursted down. Will be able to blink out, and there's P coming in with the Muriel assist. Tower is down. They have to back off even further, and they're not going to be able to save their Richter. Haru taking a lot of damage for it. Will be able to get away, and Jay not able to put the damage down. They might want to try and engage with this. The Bellica is waiting in the wings, but with Zephyr just on the side, on the off lane, trying to get that tower down, which I think, yeah, there's like a sliver HP left. They might be able to get that with a good wave push. This is going to be Rogue taking a pressure fight win. It's really what it comes down to. They had used the last timer of that mini prime to get that objective out of the way and get the first kill on that fight. Zephyr under a little bit of pressure, but they won't be able to push this wave out and into the tower just yet.
Right, and it's friendship teamwork time for Team Rogue right now. You see them grouping up. They get that mid tower. They move everybody together over to the right lane. It's already pushed into the tower. Only going to bounce out a little bit of a way. They still have the Twin Blast over there in order to be able to help push this, as well as it looks like he's actually going to reset after picking that Scion buff up there. But damn, Haru was bending bullets like Neo in the Matrix in there, just like pew, pew, weaving them around those big tanks, getting them to the backline, being able to hit Mad Caporal. He trusts yours truly, uses the E to jump in, gets pulled back out by Joey as well, and just like a really clean, executed fight for them. Ooh, but Blue Jays here to maybe steal this. They're not going to pick it up. That is going to be For Fun Gamers that gets it. But the team fight is going to pop off here. Skewer's only going to land onto one, but the Rockers are going to come back into it. Peak's going to fall down as well, but Blue Jay is going to get blown up immediately after it. The Torn Space is going to be taken. He's up in the air with a big black hole, but he's pretty high up there. Low health bars onto Pinzu and to Haru as Zephyr is chasing forward, but he got to be careful. He can't tank too much at this point, but Haru's falling low. That is going to be Haru dropping down, as well as the Sevrog is wreaking havoc, and that is a one team fight for Fun Gamers. Only Pinzo remains. He's all the way back in his tier 2 tower, and that's exactly what you want to turn this game for Fun Gamers.
It is too early to win a team fight that decisively for Fun Gamers. At least that's what Rogue might be thinking to themselves. But that was beautiful execution, able to just walk away with that particular fight. They got the objective and the team fight afterwards, and they might be able to pick up. Not mini prime is already over. Unfortunate, but Or Prime is going to be the next objective they want to fight for. This tower is going to fall. It has like no health left. So they got all the tier 1s except for the tier 1 mid on that Rogue still has standing, and the tier 1 on the off lane that FFG still has standing. So map control looking pretty even, although mid is obviously the tower that you want most. So Rogue a slight advantage there. We'll be seeing whether or not this lead that Rogue now has seen slinking a little bit can be built out again, because they keep having to keep up that pressure. And Second Kid is undoubtedly going to take this tower down right now, get a little bit more gold in their pocket, be able to push this further forward, and maybe complete another item, because they have a few of things in the back right now.
Yeah, so I think that if this game goes the distance and Fun Gamers wins this, that's the team fight. That's the moment in this game we're going to have to look back on, because I think them making that aggressive play, pulling that off, and then absolutely wiping them in that fight. Pinzo got out by the seat of his pants in that as well, or that would have been the full RGS ace for Fun Gamers, and we may have seen a lot more damage around the map. They do need to respond to this Tekken Kid push, though, but he is a little too far, actually to the spot where he may have a small flank on him now. The mobility from Feng Mao is just going to get him back into the line of his teammates, back to safety real quick.
Zephyr at level 14, trying to keep up with the Feng Mao. Good hook there onto the crunch. They want to back, but you're going to go back to spawn, just not the way you want it.
That's not what you want at 23 minutes right outside of the Orb Prime pit as well. They're sweeping this, and they might just start this up. They don't have a hunt to defend this for Rogue for 31 seconds still, and this might be a free Orb Prime for FFG as they're starting to knock it down. Pinzo's all of the way on the other side of the map as well. Tekken may have to come in here, try to play some hero ball, but it might be a little suicidal if he does it, so we don't want to see that come out of him, as they're just going to have to give. Wow, what a hit from Mad Caporal, getting Blue Jay out. Pinzo's going to pressure the tier 2 on the left side of the map, but they've already got somebody back. Somebody's going to be sent there, have those empowered minions in order to be able to stop him. And, you know, what a turning point again.
Yeah. other than their waves not being pushed out, that was like the perfect engagement, and then just taking the Orb Prime. And you're going to be able to push those waves out very quickly, like you said, with the empowered minions, so they don't really care. But Rogue, under so much pressure at the moment, no one's got the Primal Fangtooth just yet, but that's going to be spawning up in a couple minutes as they're just going to be dashing down these lanes at the moment. They really want that mid tower that's still standing. That's like the one thorn in their side. But they will be able to eventually get that if they keep this tempo up. Macroporal tries to stop over, maybe find someone in that mid lane to get a Whiplash on.
They are standing on a ward though, which I do see. He's got the sweeper that comes out now, so now he is wise to that. Expect them to make the move here. Yeah. And hey, big shout out to Matt Caporo there. He knows that turret's going down, knows that he's a tank, and he's kind of to the spot that he needs to be already, and he's just kind of a Richter tank. Doesn't take any of that local gold from his carry there, from Bri, from Jay. Make sure that they're getting as much as they can, because he's kind of where he needs to be already. He's got that Fire Blossom, he's got his right click, and he's got his ult, and he's got his silence for the crunch, and that's really what you need on the crunch, or I'm sorry, on the Richter at this point in the game. And Tekken Kid, you know, a tale of two different times of the game. Early, he runs him down level 2. Now he's turning tail and getting away from Zephyr when he sees him in lane here. And
he's playing it super smart though, because he's playing the Fang Mao as a split pusher at the moment. And you know that FFG wants to kind of run around the map and just take objectives as a team. And because they're constantly having, you know, the Gideon on the duo lane, and then the Fang Mao on the off lane, just like pushing down those towers. Like the tier 2 on the duo lane is gone, if I'm not mistaken. The tier 2 on the off lane is taking a bunch of damage. Like these waves are constantly threatening. So Rogue is just avoiding the team fights, avoiding like the core objectives, and just choking it down. Look, Tekken Kid's in the lane again. He's already on the tower. Like, you cannot rotate this fast if you're FFG, and this might become a base race at this point if this keeps on going like this.
It might, but I think at this point in the game, 25 minutes in, I trade the double buff for the tier 2 tower. But if Blue Jay can get in here, get a good steal off onto this completely opens the game up for Rogue, but I don't think that's going to happen. Zephyr's doing a real good job of roaming. Blue Jay does get in, but it looks like he's a little bit too late. Black Hole is going to come out, but most of the members out, and Pinzo's just going to get deleted. Joe Yours Truly is going to get subjugated as well. The Siphon's going to come through. Uno reversal card from the Muriel, but Zephyr's going to flash forward in order to chase JYT here, and that's going to be Mad Coral picking him up with the Q to silence him down, but Tekken Kid's pushing the inhib, just as Mana Class was mentioning. But Bri is here to try to slow him down. The mana pool is still all the way up for Tekken Kid.
Down.
Holy cow!
He just gets it. He's so far ahead on that off lane. He's got a ton of experience, a ton of gold. He's just split pushing. And yes, FFG is going to be able to push this tower down. They might be getting an inhibitor. Like, they're doing great, but they're just keeping up on the side of Rogue, especially in that off lane, that split push. And while they might not stand a chance in team fights for like just ever anymore, that doesn't really matter as long as they can get those inhibitors down, as long as they can get that tower down. The biggest struggle they're going to have is that mid lane, but if you can just push the side lanes constantly, that's a lot of pressure that FFG cannot really deal with unless they want to give up their team fight potential.
Right, and so they're going to start this vision war out around it. It also makes it very difficult, as you were saying, they are pushing into super minions now. So the Baron buff, or the Baron buff, what am I talking about? The Orb Prime buff just falls off of FFG, so now they don't have that pushing power. They got to clear through those waves, but they've got their eyes on this tier 2 tower. Jake gets chunked a little bit from some of that extra damage from Haru there, and another wave is going to come in. They're going to try to push that down, but actually it looks like they're going to retreat. Blue Jays across enemy lines right here. He needs to be careful, although it is hard for a Richter to be able to catch up to a crunch.
Macroporeal looking for picking up the river buffs, just controlling that space, those jungles really well. And, you know, again, like there is no argument to say that FFG isn't like the stronger team in terms of what they have like as individual heroes and as a team. But the macro is what it's all going to come down to in this game at the moment. We're gonna see what Tekken Kid's going to keep on doing. Haven't really seen them in a while because they just got eliminated, obviously. But 20 seconds without the Fang Mao, 20 seconds where you don't really have to worry about the split push. And they are taking advantage of it by just 4-5 manning up to lanes and making sure that they push back that map space. They push back those objectives. And now it's just an inhibitor in the offlane and the dual lane standing in their way. They are like answering what Rogue is putting down, but Rogue is definitely pushing with what they have.
And they're going to take the gold from that power play. They're going to take a base right here. They're going to restock their items. They're going to get up to a bigger strength. As you see, they have opened the kill score up 11-4 in the favors of FFG right now. The Orb Prime about to respawn again. And, you know, FFG's just in a better spot to contest it, take this, and push the rest of the game down at this spot. What is Rogue going to do to be able to turtle?
The one stat I do really want to point out is that Tekken Kid is almost a 300 CS versus Zephyr's 232. Like, that gap is exactly what illustrates the only chance that Rogue really has. It's that offlane push, that split push that's coming out. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get away with it for much longer, because at some point these team fights about these objectives do start mattering, and Rogue cannot ignore them, so they're going to have Tekken Kid be a part of that, because they don't really have enough tank and enough sustain and enough burst damage without the Feng Mao there. They're gonna have the matchup with Zephyr at the moment, but you know that at this point in the game, that's not a matchup you're gonna win anymore. Tekken Kid does duke them, does just get away, teleport out. No way that Zephyr's gonna catch up with this, but man, is it gonna be a much harder game every single minute that goes on.
Right, and we also needed to highlight, well, that, actually, hold on a second. Peck's going to get hit by an uppercut here. That's going to be able to get himself out with the reversal of fortune, so that's fantastic to see. Don't want to have your Muriel get picked with the way that she's able to keep your characters alive and the protection she adds to Jay. But we need to highlight the Bellicov really quick from the last tab menu. She's 3-0-6 right now. She was the first pick of this game. The very first pick we saw in the entire tournament, the main event today, was Bellicov. Expect that to be repeated over and over and over again if she's not banned, because they can do performances like this. Being behind in experience and gold to a Bellica sucks. I am a mid main. Trust me about it. You just don't want to be in this spot.
I mean, do you ever really want to be behind? I don't think anyone wants to be behind, but yeah, versus the Bellica, that's like the definitely one of the worst situations that you can be in. It's so fascinating to me that, like, the way that this game has been playing out, because the Fangtooth just got picked up by Rogue like not too long ago. The new one's about to spawn, or Prime I think is already up again. So we are looking at a situation here where these next objectives are going to matter, because the map control is virtually the same. Like, both these teams, you know, there's only 2 inhibitors left on either side. Just, you know, difference in what lane they're on. The big advantage that FFG has is that mid control, because they've got the inhibitor and the tier 2 tower up. But that's about the only advantage they really have, other than, you know, potential XP leads and gold leads.
The super minions are going to
for it.
The super minions are going to push faster down mid lane as well, because that lane is significantly shorter than the off lane as well, where they don't have their inhibitor. And actually, it looks like their inhibitor spawns as we are saying this as well. So right now, they've got this pushing advantage. This is when they need to put a pressure on a Rogue, try to get them to step out or just stall with them, right? Because even if they just keep Rogue from clearing these waves, keep them dancing around these neutral objectives, that's pressure getting applied to their side of the map and things pushing back their way. So here we go. You see them that, you know, they're going to clear these minions out. They're going to push it in towards them again, and then they're going to retreat back into the safety of that side jungle.
No, that's a dash out. Tenkid's being chased, though, by the Sevarog. Bryke actually came in to help, but couldn't quite lock down the Feng Mao. As we're expecting the Feng Mao to be, Matt Corporeal's looking for it, though. They're like, hey, maybe I can get a rip touch on this guy. It looks
like Tekken Kid is pushing B. If they notice that he's backing, this would be a perfect time for them to turn. And I don't know that they're going to... that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to try to rip this down, but Rogue is wise to it, and they're going to try to turn to the other objective, get the pushing power, not the combat power, as it looks like we're going to get a handshake out of these two.
Yeah, it's very... I mean, this is just what's going to happen. It's not even a question, because there's no one else near the other objectives for either team. So, yeah, it's going to just be an objective trade. But that's kind of been the story so far, right? They're just trading. Like, yeah, FFG is sort of ahead in most metrics, but they are just trading, and they're not really fighting. Like, there's not been, like, really any team fights other than those two fights around the pit at some point. Every now and then you get a pick off, but they're just dodging and weaving around each other. Tekken Kid, I mean, they're close to being full build at this stage. It's not really much more they can upgrade at some point.
I feel like this is oddly playing into the strength of both of these teams as well. So we talked about Rogue's strategy of trying to get Tekken Kid pushing, right? So they give him the buff. They prioritize the Orb Prime that is going to help Tekken Kid push. For Fun Gamers is trying to team fight, and they're trying to wipe these guys out. So what they're looking for is that buff that's going to make it so they can win team fights. They're going to get that extra true damage burn that comes out with that Primal Fangtooth. So it's logical for both of them to be okay with taking this handshake, because FFG is thinking right now, well, we'll just blow you up through the health regen of the Orb Prime, and Rogue is thinking, well, we'll be able to keep Tekken Kid healthy. We'll be able to separate and slide through the map, as you see it already. There's Tekken Kid on the left side of the map with his eyes on that tier 2 tower.
He wants that lane pushed out. It's funny because Zephyr, like after that off lane push that Tekken Kid did, where he just got the inhibitor on his own, Zephyr has been usually sort of like, you know, preemptively rotating to the lane where he's like pretty sure this is where Tekken Kid's gonna go. This is the lane he wants to push. So I'm just gonna be there before he gets there, so I can just put the pressure back and he can't actually push the lane. Now it's Bride is defending. Of course, Bellica really good at just blowing up those lanes. Doesn't have to fight the Feng Mao at all if she doesn't want to. So Bryce is gonna chill, push the lanes back, make sure that Tekken Kid is effectively being a neutral presence over there. And the rest of FFG is going to look for this pressure in mid. They want to get the inhibitor back down. They want to push this lane. They don't have the minion power, of course, to push with, because that's the Orb Prime buff that Rogue has got. But they are able to team fight, and they get Haru.
Colossal blow onto Haru.
That's a flash.
Oh no, that's Haru going down, and that is very, very bad for Rogue. That's most of their damage, especially with Tekken Kid over on the other side of the map. Only really Pinzo here to be able to clear these waves, as Blue Jay doesn't want to have to step up into Mad Corporeal. Skewer's going to come out, but he is pink from the stasis, but they're going to still be able to lock Pinzo down. This inhib also isn't shooting back as well, and Tekken Kid needs to get back into his base. Bry's going to do what he can to stop him here, but For Fun Gamers has their eye on the core.
Tekken Kid did put a little bit of pressure onto that dual lane inhibitor, but it's not going to be enough. Jay now with Jay and crew, really, they're just going to try and push the next inhibitor down, and there's Bry, finds the blow up on the Tekken Kid. This is going to be potentially, very close to a game end, if not just a game end in general. They're going to keep pushing like this. The waves are not looking too hot other than that mid lane wave, but they want to get those inhibitors down. They should at least be getting 1 or 2 inhibitors. Maybe more.
Zephyr's coming with a wave right now, but it looks like Haru will be up right around the time that really gets into there. With Jay being close to full build on this Drongo, it should get absolutely deleted, though. That's going to be a second inhib falling for Team Rogue, as they've got almost nowhere left on the map to fall back to.
Objective power is also gone. No more buffs for either team. No Primal Fangtooth, no Orb Prime. They're going to have to wait for those to be back up. In the meantime, they're happy to push these waves. Brave just picking up the wave, pushing it into this last inhibitor that's still standing for Rogue. And Rogue, they're regrouping. They're in the base. They're waiting for Tekken Kid. Another 14 seconds before he's up. And it's going to be time to push the core. They're going to go for the next objective. They're going to find a buff or two. And then they're just going to go for it, because there's nothing stopping FFG at this point.
Yeah, full pockets on the side of FFG. Jay did get the gold for taking all 3 of those inhibs, as well as he did participate in it. Also participated in getting that pick onto Haru early. You see, he's backing with 3,100 gold. He is more or less full build anyways. He's going to continue to be. Matt Caporo is going to be able to finish up his 4th item here when we get to this. So we'll take a look here. You know, Bry's full build. He's 408. He's got 370 CS. He's been full build for a hot minute now. Caporo's got his 4th item now. Peck, Peak is the support. He's got 3 and some change, which is not bad at all for him. We see the full build on Jay. Gotta point out the Stonewall on the Drongo. Getting a little defensive because he knows he deals enough damage with the 4 things, and that allows him to have some disengage and some peel. Drongo's already so safe with the shrapnel cannon, with the Muriel there, in order to be able to provide him with some shields, and the Stonewall is just going to basically make him unkillable, keep him alive in every single fight. But speaking of fights, we got a skewer that comes out of Mad Caporo. They got to be careful here. Blue Jay is pretty low. Joe Yours Truly is going to use the Tranquility, give him a little bit of healing back up, but I don't think that they want to take this fight. A flank comes out from Tekken, but he gets knocked up, and he's just going to get... actually, he's going to get out by the seat of his pants there. That was so close. I was ready to call that Tekken had died, but that's going to be a reset coming and needed for the Feng Mao, and that should give For Fun Gamers enough time to break down this Primal Fangtooth.
Yeah, the choice between the Feng Mao and the Feng Tooth, they did choose the Feng Mao this time around. The Primal Feng Tooth is going to go the way to FFG, and the Ore Prime is not back up yet, so they can't do the same objective trade once again. It is going to be FFG rotating to mid. They're going to try and run it down, see who they can catch some stranglers. They might just set themselves up for the Ore Prime as well. It's about to respawn. It is very close, and FFG does not want to trade that. I mean, they don't have to trade it this time around. They can go for the team fight. It's going to be Rogue that has to answer this.
Still not up for a couple of seconds here, but Blue Jays all the way on the left side of the map. Here it is, and they're just going to tear right into it. Blue Jays sprinting. He's going to have to use his forward crunches, but he's not going to get here in time. They've got this Primal Fangtooth. It's 38 minutes into the game. They're just going to delete this. And here goes Haru trying to be a hero. Yours truly is going to yank him back to safety, say, nah, no frontline ADCs, please, but they're going to have to give away the objective. Double buffed up on a Saturday morning, and 4 Fun Gamers has got their eyes on the core. Zephyr is going to take the Torn Sprays forward. He's onto JYT, who is starting to peel back a little bit. The blind is going to get him, but Joe isn't going to have anywhere he can go. Pinzo's going to throw a couple rocks at him, but this is a full build, full stack Sevrog. It's not going to do any damage. 3 of their inhibs are down. Tekken Kid's down, and they're trying to proxy the lane, stop the minion push, but it might be too little too late as 2 members of Rogue are already down. They're going to clear up these waves as they are spawning as well. Make this final push into the core, and it should be game 1 for 4 Fun Gamers here.
Yeah, like I said, Tekken Kid doing all they can to reduce the amount of minions pushing into this core, but FFG, they're just standing there. They're menacingly looking at you through your window, and they're about to break down the door, and there it is. They're going onto it. The minions are there. This might be a black hole that does something for Pinzo, but it's 3 members already down. What are you going to do, Rogue? The answer is absolutely nothing, as this core is dropping, and game 1 is going to go to FFG.
40 minutes into the game. Actually, they need to get 1 more minion wave in here, but it's not going to matter. There's nobody up. They're just going to... It's just trivially at this point. It is over. That's game 1 for 4 Fun Gamers. I'm going to say it. Color me surprised. I would not have predicted that. Once we saw the draft, I had a little bit of an inkling that it may happen because it looked like a draft diff to me. But holy cow, to sit here, if I was going to tell you at 9:37 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on September 2nd in PCC 5 that 4 Fun Gamers would be out 1-0 in our series, Rogue 1 game away from potentially being eliminated and not being shown tomorrow in either our 3rd and 4th or 1st and 2nd place match, I wouldn't have believed you.
No, and it's like there's a lot of things that are sort of, you know, shaking up their game at the moment. Like, we are potentially going to see Wango come back in for game 2. There's a possibility they just had some internet issues at the start. So there is still a lot of they can potentially do to turn it around, like things that can happen. But yeah, I think if they maybe have a little bit of a better draft, they could get away with it. There were a lot of good plays that came out from them, a couple of good moments that were really showing us that Rogue is a team that you definitely have to be scared of in a lot of situations. But FFG, just from the first ban they came out in that draft, they never really let go, neither in the draft nor in the actual game. And if they're going to keep on doing this, if they're going to keep basically being big brain like they are, then there's almost nothing you can do against it. And if you're Rogue, and there's a lot more teams that are going to have to be scared of them.
I agree. So that is going to be game 1 for us. We're going to kick it back to our dog Trix and Moogie to give you a little bit more, but we will be back for game 2.
Thank you so much, Lance. And Man of Class, holy crap, game 1 to 4 Fun Gamers. Rogue. You gotta put some respect on these names: Peak, Mad Corporeal, Bri, Jay, and Zephyr. Trix, tell us what just happened.
The game was a fiesta. There was so much back and forth. Bri picking up the kill level 1, Tekken Kid picking up the kill level 3. It was a bloodbath, and then it kind of stalled out for a little bit. It, sat 2 kills for quite a while, honestly. There's a back and forth couple, oh, we're in your jungle, oh, we're here, oh, gank, like, oh, we'll burn some blinks. But then, like, that Fangtooth pickup, and then just full team wipe, and then it was non-stop for 4 Fun Gamers. Tekken Kid with the split push tried to claw back a little bit, got the inhib essentially for free, But I think at that point, you know, they're just too. The Sevarog was too big. You know, you saw him at the end just walking down whole teams. You know, he got the pick on Haru, and that was kind of the beginning of the end. And then it's just they outscaled. Yeah, it was just like we said.
Yeah, that was a beautiful, colossal blow from that Sevarog, you know, separating him from Joey. I was like, Haru, no. But Mugi, tell us what you thought about the game one.
Well, to be fair, the results kind of come down to like what we were analyzing in the draft. There was like a lot of things that we have seen that the comp of Rogue couldn't function like in the late game. Basically, with like the Rictor, the Bellica, the Sevrog, any single one that person from Rogue that is going to step forward is going to get hook, stun, colossal blow away, and that's a kill, and suddenly the whole map's open and you have nothing to really like contest that. So your composition is not going to function. And so to me, like, it was already like kind of won in the draft, but I was still like surprised by how much Rogue managed to make something happen with that draft differences. Like, they still like have very, very few weapons, but they still like say, okay, we're gonna focus on objective, and they still got the first two Fang Tooths, the first mini prime. They almost like have been there to contest the third Fang Tooth. It was almost like a 50-50, and so they really like try to use all their strengths. And also like when the game started to go south at this third Fang Tooth moment, they still like find windows with Tekken Kid trying to split push. And they had almost nothing going for them from the draft, but they still like pull out a lot of strengths. So I really feel like that if in the next draft they step up, they can still be a contender for FFG. But at the same time, like what Rogue was pulling in that game with Tekken Kid, like the FFG back of the seeding round would have fallen for that. And they didn't. They still like remained composed, they tried the right objective, and they still like cleaned the game correctly until the end. So I think like draft needs to be stronger for Rogue, but if they do, that could be like a very, very nice game too, probably.
Yeah, and actually earlier in chat while we were watching the game, you know, some people in chat were saying like when they shook hands and the one team took Ore Prime and then the other team took Primal, Trix, can you tell us like which is better? Is it the Primal Fang Tooth or is it the Ore Prime buff?
So it's super situational, in my opinion, based on kind of where the game is, what your team comp wants to do, and what the other team comp wants to do. For fun gamers in that situation, they are trying to fight, they're getting picks, and they have the map open so they can apply the pressure. So they don't necessarily need the Orb Prime buff. They can kind of just sit in front of your tower, push the waves in, and the second they get a pick, they blow you up. You're dead instantly. So in my opinion, they made the right call. But also Rogue, once they take Orb Prime, they're kind of committing to that Tekken Kid split push that we saw them do, where they said, okay, like we got an inhibitor for free one time. Maybe with Orb Prime buff, you know, maybe our minions can hold off the push. We can have Tekken kind of do the split push thing. But giving up that much damage to For Fun gamers to where you're already having problems getting nuked, to give them the tools to do that even more effectively, in my opinion, was kind of the wrong call. I think it kind of just delayed the inevitable, and I really would have liked to see them, you know, all or nothing. Like we can't let them have this because we saw what happened when they got it.
All right, Mugi, what about any other like last final remarks before we go for a break?
Well, I was impressed by what FFG pulled out. I'm still impressed by what Rogue managed to do with their comp. I can't wait to see like the second game. No, Rogue is their backs against the wall. They really need to not fumble that next draft, and so that should be like a very exciting moment for like us in a short while.
Anything else you'd like to add, Trix?
I mean, I don't think that game one was as decisive as it could have been. So I think that there are definitely avenues for Rogue to come back. Kind of some flaws in FFG's strategy to exploit, but I think FFG had a good showing, especially for, you know, like we talked about, a relatively new roster. So yep. I think game two is, I'm hoping for another fiesta. Honestly, I want to see some fights. I want to see some crazy back and forths, and I'm really excited and looking forward to it.
Trix wants to see a bloodbath. Thank you so much, everybody. For those who are, you know, still watching and still with us, you know, if you get the chance, please give us a follow, give us a, you know, subscribe to our channel if you like what you're seeing. We have a YouTube. We also have our Zitter. And then also, if you aren't already, please go ahead and join our Discord. We'll be right back for game number 2.